Michael Anton is a former senior national security official in the Trump administration, a lecturer at Hillsdale College, and probably the first person in this generation to raise the question of whether birthright citizenship is indeed constitutional. Thank you very much, Michael Anton. You wrote this piece that I think began this current conversation this past July. And people were stunned to find out that this was not a settled matter. Most people believe this is etched on the bottom of the Statue of Liberty, but it's not.
Right. And I do want to give credit where credit's due to people that I learned these arguments from. John Eastman is a constitutional scholar and lawyer, litigator. He litigates constitutional questions. And Edward Erler, who's a student of the American founding and the Civil War era, who's done really the scholarly work on this. I learned this argument from them. They're two of my teachers. But it's true that, you know, it had kind of gone dormant for a while.
Dormant? This is Flat Earth Society stuff. So everyone believes that we have a constitutional mandate to allow the children of illegal aliens to become citizens.
And they base that belief on a misreading of the very first sentence of the 14th Amendment, which says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens. They leave out the part in the middle, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They either leave it out or they say subject to the jurisdiction just means you have to obey the law. Well, everybody has to obey the law. If you're a tourist coming from England or Canada or anywhere, you have to obey U.S. law while you're in the United States. That doesn't make your children a citizen or you a citizen. Subject to the jurisdiction meant something specific to the people who wrote the amendment. We know this because they said it. You read the debates over the amendment. They said it means that you don't owe allegiance to any foreign power, to anyone else. You're subject to the complete jurisdiction of the United States, which means you're not a citizen of another country. So it clearly doesn't apply to people who aren't citizens or who are born to people who aren't citizens, who are subject to the jurisdiction of another country. The Constitution is clear on that point. There's no statute that says otherwise. But decades ago, the executive branch agencies of the federal government just decided to apply this principle as if, well, we owe everyone birthright citizenship. Now, why do they do that? Why do bureaucracies typically, in our country anyway, typically act without authority? Usually it's to serve the interests of liberalism. When the administrative state starts doing something that it's not authorized to do and that no one has ever told it to do, you can bet it's not doing so for conservative reasons or for reasons that benefit American citizens. It's doing so for reasons that benefit liberalism. And that's what happened in this case.
So you're hearing the argument now from the usual chorus of dumb people that this, like everything that they don't like, is racist.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the purpose of this amendment was to enfranchise people who had been African Americans who'd been enslaved.
Absolutely.
And so, in what sense would this? I mean, does that argument even make sense?
No.
And I want to take it seriously.
As you say, though, it's the racist is just a cudgel with which to beat up people whose arguments you don't like. So the 13th Amendment freed every slave. You had a controversy at the time where some states were saying, okay, you can free the slaves, but we have the power to make them citizens, and we're not going to do it. So Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866. The same Congress, same year that drafted this amendment. That was vetoed by President Johnson. The veto is overridden, so you get 2/3 of both houses saying freed black slaves, they are citizens. And that also says not subject to any foreign power. Well, then some of the southern states came back with, okay, well, 1857, the Supreme Court ruled in Dred Scott that no black person, even a free black person, could ever be a citizen of the United States. So the Reconstruction Congress said, okay, then we're going to put this in the Constitution. We're not going to let you get away with this. We're going to make this undeniable that every freed slave and their descendants are citizens of the United States.
So an amendment designed to enfranchise African Americans born here, been here 400 years, 500 years, is now being used by Chinese nationals.
And Russians, too.
Russians flying into Guam or Los Angeles to have children here. That would be not the original intent, I think it's fair to say.
Absolutely not. I mean, one of the things that I find incredible and amusing, sadly so, though, is, you know, the Russia hysteria of our time. Russia's supposed to be the biggest enemy the United States has right now, more dangerous enemy than in the Cold War. You know, we're all supposed to be almost on a war footing with Russia.
Yes.
And the president is criticized for saying maybe we should cool it a little bit and turn the heat down. However, we can't question the practice of Russian women flying to Miami and having their babies to get U.S. tourists. So this supposed enemy of ours, it's a sacrosanct principle to allow them to abuse our system by giving citizenship to their children who you know, are born here, spend a couple of days, and then go back to Moscow.
So the real principle that undergirds it is hurting ourselves. We're required to hurt ourselves.
Hurting ourselves, and of course hurting the president.
Right.
I mean, the Russia story is all about hurting the president.
And America. Masochism being the operating impulse of the left. It's bizarre. Michael Anton, who kicked this off, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.